Okay, so I think first I'll just kind of give a intro of who I am. So my YouTube tag is TSC, and I'm originally from Venezuela, from Caracas, and I live in Houston, Texas, though. So many people don't know this about me, and yeah, I guess I'm known for all the aerial greatsword shenanigans that you see on YouTube.
Right.
I supposedly didn't not invent it according to Griffted, but I was, I guess, the first one to apply it to speedrunning in Monster Hunter World.
Mm-hmm. Yes, can definitely verify that is true.
Yeah, and I've also been very heavily involved in a lot of the setups that are used in non-TA runs, and I guess one TA run with the Pink Rathian.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 99% of my attributes have been to non-TA runs in this game. So, all right. So I guess how about you, Griffted?
Hey, I'm Griffted. I'm that hunting horn guy. Started speedrunning April of last year, and yeah, just sort of been a whirlwind, sort of roller coaster ride ever since. Just, speedrunning a weapon that I love and hate at the same time.
Yeah, this game has it's surprising that you started in April, because man, so much the game has changed so drastically month to month.
Oh, dude.
A lot of people just don't realize how much the game has changed since it started, since its inception on the beta. From the beta to the Joe updates to every update massively changed the way the game is played.
Yeah.
People don't realize that, and I still get comments on my YouTube videos from videos from March. It's like, why aren't you using Draken? I just laugh.
So I guess let's start with the beta. What was your experience with the beta, and did you do any sort of big speed runs during the beta?
Yeah, so I think the beta was probably one of the most exciting parts of all of this. It was like a honeymoon phase when we first started. I think everyone was kind of concerned, like, oh, this wasn't going to be like a good game. We didn't know what to expect, but man, when that beta kicked in, we were all hooked. And from the get-go, so there was 3 betas, and the first 2 betas, I believe, was only Great Jagras, Anjanath, Duratidos, or was it Duratidos, and Rathalos. Mm-hmm. And from the very early on, I think what the weapon that came out on top on those first 2 betas was the Charge Blade. A lot of people don't remember this, but the Charge Blade dominated the first 2 betas.
Right.
And Diablos. I forgot about Diablos. And from the first betas, was actually when the whole the meta game, you got kind of glimpses of what Monster Hunter World was through the Charge Blade, because the Charge Blade was the only weapon that was tripping monsters constantly, because you're hitting the feet and the SAEDs, because of the way the SAEDs are explode. The SAEDs explode from the ground, and they trip monsters like Rathalos and Diablos constantly. So no other weapon had that ability yet.
Right,
so
and it was sort of like the precursor to what Monster Hunter World would become eventually, right?
Yes, it
was
a
very lock-centric, a very lockdown orientated sort of game.
So the beta, the first 2 betas were amazing, by the way. So the biggest thing I remember from the betas was actually a Rathalos run. I don't know if it was Rainy that did this run, but it was a Rathalos run. I don't remember what the timing was, but it was an insane time. Rathalos died on his nest, and basically the Charge Blade player just completely tripped him over and over and over with SAEDs, and and aiming for the feet on to charge his shield and his sword or whatever. And man, that was crazy to watch back then, because the speed running was just picking up. We didn't really know what was fast, what was not, and these first runs were the blowaway runs. I think it was
I think it was Rainy, and I think it was a sub 4 Rathalos.
Okay, yeah, it was some crazy time. Yeah, because I remember I think my fastest Rathalos was I don't know if it was in the 4 or 5 minutes, but I think it was like 4 something, and then it was like a charge blade was over a minute ahead of everything.
Right.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, my experience with the beta, I was very much casualized when the beta was released. So I sort of had a notion of wanting to get into sort of high level gameplay. It's sort of like that like you're the best melee player in your city, and everyone's like, dude, you're the best, like you're the best melee player we know, dude, you should go to a tournament. That's how it was for me, right? Like I was the best player that everyone knew, and everyone was like, dude, you need to go participate in this. And I was like, I don't know. But the beta came out, and I'm a big Monster Hunter fan, so I got into it, and of course I followed all the speedrunners as they like pluck through the betas, and I was just like, holy crap, dude. I was just watching it all sort of unfold. It was crazy, dude.
Yeah, the beta times were the beta experience and all the runners being solidified of who's running what was actually an amazing to watch. That's actually where I kind of like came into the picture, because I never really took Monster Hunter speedrunning seriously until World.
Mm-hmm.
I did speedrun a little bit of 4U and XX, but that was
Sure.
off camera, and I didn't really have the tools to record off my DS. So what I told myself that when World comes out, I have experience speedrunning other games like Ocarina of Time, and I played Melee competitively for over 10 years. So
Right.
I'm very well aware of the meta of and how speedrunning goes. So when World was kicking it in, I said I'm diving deep into this, and I'm gonna get some world records immediately. And that's actually once the channel started blowing up, I felt like I was locked into that path, and here we are today.
Right. And the other big thing, I think you kind of touched on it with the beta, was the solidification of soon to be predominant speedrunners who we haven't seen previously. And I'm talking people like Fumetto, Maestronox, it's household names now for anyone who's familiar with speedrunning. I mean, they were really hitting that beta hard, and I think a lot of people blew up because of that beta, and then the success from that beta, I'm sure, sort of propelled people forward to continue speedrunning as well.
Yeah, aside from people like me, another very notable person who blew up in the beta was Fumetto, because I remember him clearly from the early betas. So he was there from the start, and he was the one getting the top times, or some of the top times for the bow guns.
Right.
And I think it was mainly the bow guns. So he was there from the very get-go.
Yeah, definitely. And so following the beta, right, like official release comes out. So the betas are done. So
actually, before we move on to the beta, there was one last thing that happened. So after the first 2 betas, let's skip those now, because there's nothing else aside from the charge blade with Rainy. On the beta number 3, right before release, Capcom decided to give a beta with Nergigante. This was literally like 2 days before release.
Yeah.
And this man and Nergigante like blew everyone away.
Yeah,
like
for
the
sure.
match was crazy. It was exciting. It was in the Wildspire Waste, and actually, this is where I actually became like, my channel blew up here, because
you had a great sword run.
I had the fastest greatsword run on
with no ledges, right?
No. Aerial greatsword did not exist. Did not exist.
No, this is GS time with no ledges. Let's get that out of the way.
Let's be clear about this. The beta was all Rocksteady mantles.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And actually, let me say something else. The Rocksteady mantle was stronger in the beta, because actually it lasted longer than it did in the full game. They actually nerfed it.
That's right.
So
That's right, they did.
People don't remember that. So yes, the Rocksteady mantles lasted longer. So it was a lot. This was where the full Unga Boonga modes started coming in. Yeah. But yeah, that's where my channel blew up. I had a video that got like 2K views before that, but that Nerg run got me, I think I posted like 3 of them, and in total I had like 50,000 views in a channel that had like maybe like 20 subscribers. And that's where that's where my channel just blew up immediately. And then from all that you need to know from that beta was that the torch pod glitch wasn't discovered in that beta. That's where things like clusters really started shining, using this torch pod glitch. The light bowgun. The beta was where the light bowgun was like abusing slicing shots. The beta was also where actually Dragon Piercer was really good in the beta. It had the fastest Diablo's times. It had the fastest Anjanath times. So this is why Dragon Piercer was considered good when we first got into the game, because we didn't really have a good bow. So Dragon Piercer was actually really good compared to the other weapons.
Right.
But yeah.
And that sort of carried on to the early release of Monster Hunter World 2.
So now we move on to the early release of Monster Hunter World. And it's actually interesting. So like the first week the game came out, I guess for speedrunning, it was quiet, because everyone was going through the game. Everyone was... I was part of the group of people who rushed as quickly as possible to the end of the game to begin speedrunning. So I actually beat the game within the first 2 to 3 days of the game coming out. I put probably about 40 hours into it. I had already 60 hours in the betas, so I just mauled my way through the game without fail. Just destroyed through the game. And then I began speedrunning from the very first week. Just started posting runs. And it was funny because the most important run in the very first week of Monster Hunter World's release was actually the same person who made the biggest impact on the beta, and that was Rainy again. Rainy had got a sub 2 nerg like literally within the first week and a half of the game coming out. Like think about that. God. Just think about that. Like a sub 2 nerg. And people are still struggling to do sub 2 nerg.
Even like, today, right?
With gear that's like 2 to 3 times stronger than what we had back then.
Right.
And it just blew everyone away. And we were like, what just happened?
Yeah, dude. Rainy's a freak of nature, dude. He's an absolute mad lad.
Right. He's definitely one of the most respected players because he really like breaks he breaks the records in incredibly fast pace, and he's obviously a really good player. So props to Rainy for everyone who's done Monster Hunter speedrunning has been following Rainy or Akantorix, or Kanta, but Rainy is like, we all knew Rainy was the shining star of all the whole group, because he's you can tell that although I know him and Akantorix have like always challenging each other, but I always feel like Rainy was the freak of nature more than one of them's really skilled and the other one's just a freak of nature.
No, I feel the same way. It's some sort of there's just a base, like it's like that scene in Good Will Hunting where he's trying to explain his genius to his girlfriend, and he's like do you play piano? And she's like, no. He's like, neither do I. Like, when I look at a piano, I just see a box of wood, a couple keys, and a pedal. But when Mozart looks at a piano, he sees it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people who are like on that upper level, they just see it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
He's for sure one of those players. And then so that was the very first week of Monster Hunter World, the first weeks. So I guess we can kind of get into other weapons after that. So I'm trying to remember much of like what happened at the beginning, but let me just say that Hunting Horn was complete trash at the very beginning. At the very beginning, it still is. Well, yes, but actually Hunting Horn and Greatsword were actually way worse positions back then than they are now. Greatsword was really bad because right now a lot of the people don't remember or don't know this, but Greatsword actually got buffed in a title update later on with Joe, with strong charge and draw charge like buffed. Oh really? And so actually the meta back then with Greatsword was skipping through all the charges and going straight to the TCS. Right. And so if you watch the early Nerg runs with Greatsword, you'll see that no one strong charges because it's not worth it. So, very early on was when the game people were realizing that the non-elemental boost meta game, like it happens really fast. Like how like we realized that elemental sucks, and
Right.
you have to go raw. And with that happening, so actually, let me say something. Like, I think people forget that. So the way the game evolved was any weapon that had a Diablo's weapon became insanely good because of the way the game because of non-elemental boost, basically. Because the Diablo's weapons were like had the highest raw and they had no element. So weapons like Charge Blade, what is the other ones? What else Diablo? I think Switch Axe. All of those weapons like did a lot better at the beginning because of the Diablo's metagame.
Right.
Weapons like the Great Sword did not have a Diablo's version. The Hunting Horn didn't have a Diablo's version.
No.
The Sword and Shield didn't either. So what those weapons did is usually they use the next best thing, which is always kind of trashy.
Right.
The Great Sword had to use the Jagger's Hacker
or Bone Hunting Horn.
Right, the Bone Hunting Horn, and then the Sword and Shield had to use the Baroth Club, just stuff like that.
Well, I think the Baroth Club is still used for Sword and Shield.
It is, but if you actually look at the raw numbers of the weapon, is if there was a Diablo's variant,
Sure.
Sword and Shield would be way stronger.
Sure.
And yeah, it's the whole Diablo's weapons like dominated early Monster Hunter world.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from the beta, I just want to quickly mention that the only Hunting Horn speedrunner, really true Hunting Horn speedrunner, was Q, who is a pillar of the Hunting Horn community at this point. And he was the only one putting out beta videos, and he actually pulled a sub 8 Nergigante beta with the Hunting Horn, which was
really good.
Incredible.
That's really good.
And so he was essentially the North Star for anybody who was interested in getting into speedrunning for the Hunting Horn. You watch Q and you try and emulate what he did, because he led the charge as far as the Nergigante matchup was concerned.
Yeah. So if y'all don't know, when he says Q, his tag is QUA, like it's a Japanese runner. I always called him Kwa because I read QUA. But
yeah, dude, I actually don't even know how to pronounce anybody's name, so I just sort of use the first the first letter of TSC. I just say T.
I realized that quickly. So that was also there were some other very notable people to say at the beginning. Obviously, you already mentioned with Sword and Shield, Master Nox.
Right.
There's some other Japanese runners for Hammer. The biggest Hammer runner his tag was Peppo.
Right.
He was an animal too. So every time, like, his runs were insane, and it's kind of sad that I saw him disappear not long ago. So early
early speed runs for Monster Hunter World specifically, right? Elder Dragons, right? That's what everyone wanted to see. Elder Dragons, right?
Correct. Yeah, so Nergigante was the first target because of the beta, because everyone already had experience with him. So he was the first target. After that, I think people really enjoyed. People really hated Valhazak,
right,
in general. So people avoided running him. They thought he was just boring and easy. And I think most people agreed that Teo was the funnest fight.
Right.
People just loved Teostra just because if very early on it was obvious that Kushala could just be headlocked the whole time, but Teo had it felt like it was an actual fight where you could dodge, attack, stagger, you felt like you were actually like learning a fight rather than just like learning how to lock a monster. That's kind of why Nerg was actually also really fun, because Nerg is not, you can't really stagger lock Nerg. You have to kind of like you have to learn his mechanics.
Exactly.
and it was really interesting, and that's why Nerg and Teo I still think they're the most popular monsters, really.
Yeah, they're definitely the most ran as far as like Hunting Horn is concerned. And one thing about Kushala, that Predator, a mutual friend of ours, said, a fellow, a great sword speedrunner who's been speedrunning actually for a very long time with the great sword. He's been a great sword main for 25 years at this point. I think he was born with a greatsword in his hand. But he said about the Kushala matchup that really there wasn't much change coming from previous games to this game as far as the greatsword Kushala matchup. Of course, besides the tackle mechanics and all that, but essentially it's the same fight, or at least that's the way Prey felt. I don't know. I've never used greatsword against Kushala, but it sort of seems that way. It sort of seems like it's pretty much the same fight from previous games.
Yeah, he's right, and and it's funny. Yeah, Prey has been there also from the very beginning. He was one of my very early rivals. Mm-hmm. Him and Bao Bao. I remember Prey because when doing all the beta runs, Prey and Bao Bao were always the ones right ahead of me or right behind me on runs. So we were all, we never talked. We never talked to each other. So you know how you have like that silent rivalry between people where you post a run and they post one right after, so they were watching your videos. So that's what kind of how me and Prey were. But obviously we started diverting into what we are now. So
some big developments sort of happened with Kushala too, as far as bow speedrunning. So bow speedrunning, you have your killers, Fumetto, SSH. It's a pretty heavily populated weapon, right?
There's so many good bow players. Faye too.
Yeah, Faye's amazing.
Milan Rain. There's way too many good bow players.
But
it's
the
ridiculous.
Crazy part is though the hit zone changes for Kushala.
Right.
Yeah, so we didn't know what the actual hit zone data was, so everyone just sort of assumed that the head was the best place to hit Kushala with the bow, right? And then sometime late February, maybe early March, Kiriniko released the hit zone data, and it actually showed that the tail took the best damage from bow. And so you could actually see it in speedrunning, where in Fumetto Sapphire Star Guidance speedrun, where he killed a bunch of elders, he was hitting the head. And then after they found out about that, the hit zone data changes. The very next Kushala speedrun, it's like tail focused. I mean, like clockwork. It was actually really amazing to see that.
Yeah. As information, that has to do with how the game evolves and how the meta changes as new information is gathered, and it's still happening today. It's still happening right now to this day.
Right.
So I guess let's move on from the very beginning. Let's move on to like the Joe update. So what happened?
That was the first sort of big deal update.
Yeah, so that was like 2 months into the game, and I guess I can, right before the Joe update is I think when I discovered the whole aerial greatsword shenanigans that I do. Actually let me briefly talk about how all that was discovered.
Yeah, that's that's actually what I'm really interested in is how you actually figured it out, and then how you applied it to the game and all that. So I think a lot of people are actually interested in that.
So I did a lot of runs before I even discovered that whole that trick, and basically one day I was just thinking like, man, what am I gonna run next? And I remember that one video of someone doing that gun lance trick on a monster. I think it was a Puke. It was a meme on Reddit of him just doing aerial attacks for just to hit the monster. It wasn't a speed run or anything, but I was like, man, the damage there looks pretty good.
Right.
I wonder how strong the greatsword is. I knew it hit hard, but I didn't think it hit that hard. So I remember what is a monster that spawns by a ledge, and I just thought Odogadon spawns by a ledge. Like you literally run down to him and you have to climb up a ledge and he's right there.
Right.
So I booted up my game, I picked the Odogadon quest, and I put a trap right there where Odogadon spawns.
Now, did you start with Gunlance, or did you go straight to Greatsword when you first started?
I actually played Gunlance mostly on the first beta, and I got actually a really good time on Wrathflows. I actually think I was the first person to do the full burst infinite with Gunlance, to discover that it existed in Monster Hunter World in a speed run, because I was the first. I've never seen anyone do it before I did. So I think I was actually the first person, maybe not to discover it, because a lot of people might have run it secretly,
right?
You don't have a video, but in video I'm the first person to do that full burst infinite. That full burst infinite does not exist in any other Monster Hunter World, and any other Monster Hunter. So no one even thought about that this little trick might exist. And but I quickly moved on to Greatsword when I saw I think I was in the second beta. I saw someone doing the tackles with the Greatsword, and I was like, man, that's so cool. I didn't even know that the Greatsword was, had a tackle.
Right.
Because Greatsword never had a tackle in old games.
Sure.
Now, and I really like those kind of counter move play, or like super armor kind of play. And I thought it was really neat, so that's how I picked up Greatsword.
Okay,
just
cool.
from that one video. It
so
was a
back
Japanese player.
back to Odagaron, right?
Yeah. So, I booted up my game. It started as a meme. I didn't actually think anything of it aside from I'll just do a troll run, just for fun. I just posted on my channel. I have nothing else. I have nothing else to post.
Right.
I don't usually have backlog of runs ever. I kind of just go and I do runs, and if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And within a few, within 10 to 15 minutes, I got one run, and it was like a sub 130, and I was like, what? Whoa, that was insanely fast.
Right.
I think the fastest time at the moment with Greatsword was like 3 minutes, and I was like, what the hell? I just sub 130'd this. And then I was like, okay, let's try to go lower, and I got like a 109, and I think that was the fastest Odogaron out of any weapon in the game at the moment. And I was just like, okay, this is crazy. And then I posted the run, and man, it blew up. Like,
130,000 views.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh my god, what is this? What is like what is this thing that I just noticed?
When you got that, I think your final time was 107.91, right? When you finally got that, was there any inkling in your head where you were just like, okay, this might be the dopest thing ever? Like, so did you know?
No, at the moment, I didn't think like that way. I just thought like I still had my doubts about whether this works on other things. Obviously, if you're just putting a trap down and spamming your DPS, like it's like, okay, this can work on random monsters, but how is it going to work on elders?
Right, you can't trap elders, so how do you keep them locked to a ledge? Right.
So then the very next one, I went for Tio. And it wasn't obviously like the way I was aerial greatswording wasn't optimal at all at that moment, because I didn't really know the mechanics behind it, but I got an insanely fast time for the moment. I think I beat the top time by 30 seconds, which is a lot. And I was like, okay, it may be something. So then after Teostra, my next target was Nergigante, and that's where that's where things got really interesting.
So just some some setup before that. Before you got into aerial, you actually posted a sub 150 heroics greatsword run, right? That was non-aerial. So I mean, that's like wicked fast already. And then so you discover this aerial, whatever it is, and then you set your sights on Nergigante. Now, did you think that you could actually beat your heroics just normal greatsword when you first started doing the aerial Nergigante?
No, I didn't really think much of aerial even while I was doing it. I was still amazed that this even worked, and a lot of this was still secret. When I was it was funny, I actually remember the day I was running Nerg, because my channel was blowing up, and I had some people over at my place, and I'm like, I kept telling the guy next to me, if this works, like, my channel is gonna blow the crap up. Like, I literally looked them in the face, and I was like, I was running Nerg, and I was like, I can't believe this is working. Because right now, like, at the moment, Monster Hunter World was actually really big. A lot of people were playing it.
Yeah.
People had eyes on every Nerg run, and this was actually within a month of the game coming out. And the runs already had been established about what is the fastest way to greatsword. Had already been established, and I still just couldn't believe like that it was a thing. Like, and I still can't believe the crazy shenanigans you can do with aerial greatsword to this day,
and still learning new stuff too.
Yes, and still learning the crazy stuff you can do with this weapon and other weapons too. Like, this has led to a lot of discoveries with other weapons for me as well. So it's just it unlocked what Monster Hunter World, like, true, the true end speedrunning of what this game is.
Yeah, and that Nergigante, I mean, and you were right. You thought it was going to blow. Like, if it worked, it was going to blow, and it did. It blew up, dude.
Yeah, I knew, because it's interesting, because to make that Nerg run happen, certain things had to happen. For example, flash pulling was very new at that during those era, and I learned how to flash pull from doing my Val run, like like a few runs before that. Right. So if I never had done that Val run, I would never have even had the idea to pull Nerg into another area. Because if you think about how crazy that is early on, like no one has ever just grabbed a monster and pulled them into another area to do an exploit, right? Like ever, at least not in the not with flash pulling, not to that degree in a speed run. So
right, and just real quick, flash pulling is of course when you. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could explain it a lot better than I could.
No, go ahead. It's pretty simple.
Okay, so okay, great, thanks. Set me up here. So essentially, how it works is, if you have a flash pod and you throw it, and you're not in the immediate eyesight of a monster, the flash pod actually has this sort of aggroing effect, and the monster wants to come over and investigate.
Right.
Did I get that pretty much right there?
Yeah, it happens pretty much when the monster's not in combat with you. The flash kind of acts like a sound wave, and the monster wants to run to that specific spot where the flash blew up. So the flash pod pull actually, or you can use the screamer pod, but the screamer pod actually has different properties depending on the monster. But that's why a lot of times we avoid using screamer pods, because of the way they're not consistent. But right. flash pods have also a bigger range. So
and your aerial Nergigante run, you used multiple flash pods or flash pulls, correct, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, actually getting those to work properly was incredibly hard, because the position of them had to be you couldn't just like spam it and get them to come at the right spot. Like for example, what happens is Nerg, he depending on his size, he runs at different speeds. So if you flash too fast down the tunnel and he starts running down the tunnel, he might see you and he'll stop, so he won't go to the next area. So you're kind of like hugging the corner around the next area to kind of get him there, and using his own speed to like him not see you. It was kind of strange, but like I still can't believe it works.
So you can't just like unload these flash pods. I mean, it's actually no. Timed perfectly, and you're releasing them at specific times.
Yeah, and everyone that's done these Nerg runs, they've always told me that the hardest part about the Nerg Aerial Greatsword is the pull. Right. Pulling him to the next area is actually like a learning curve, because even I have to like go back and teach myself what exactly I did, because there's like some nuances to it.
Right. And I just a quick side note here, if anyone hasn't seen this run, you're doing yourself a disservice, because this is the run that like put you on my map, where I was just like, okay, this guy is a nutcase, and that run is the run I actually subbed to you on, like dead ass. Seriously. And then I was just like, every single upload after that, I was just like fanboyed out, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so dope.
Yeah, it was actually those early days of Monster Hunter World, where I was like those runs working was what actually got me to open up my mind about the game, about not seeing it as just like a Monster Hunter game, but seeing it as like game full of exploits that are just there for the taking, and no one else there is crazy enough to go after them. And yeah, dude, very few players have actually gone to that end, and I feel like the game is full of these exploits everywhere. And very few players have gone to that end for some reason. They're just very against it. The general speedrunning population of this game is just very against exploits. They want they want legit runs. Like right. They're just not. It's funny because I don't treat these people as speedrunners. They're monster hunters. They don't care about speedrunning. They just want their game to play like how it used to.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting, especially with the people who have been around a long time. There is a sort of reluctance to, kind of go against the grain and sort of think outside the box. And you do make a good point here. It's, if it's something is looked at as an exploit in any game, there's going to be controversy surrounding it. And I think you also bring up a good point that they're monster hunters. They're incredibly gifted, talented, super skilled monster hunters who can kill monsters mad quick, but speedrunners are a little bit different, right? They're a little bit, I don't know, they're looking for it's not necessarily the game that they're.
We have no moral.
Exactly.
We put no moral in the way we hunt. Like, we have no morality, as in we don't really care whether something is cool to watch or not. We just think, what is the fastest way to get from point A to point B?
And these sort of
regardless
discussions,
of what people think.
These sort of discussions actually are pretty common in most speed games. And there's sort of a divisive community between, glitchless speedrunning versus glitch speedrunning. And this pops up everywhere. It's not just exclusive to Monster Hunter too.
Yeah, it just, this conversation has never really been held in this community because they've been pretty much free of it until now.
Yeah. So you put up the aerial Nergigante speedrun, right? And everything blows up. So in your head, what are you thinking? Are you like, holy crap, like how far can I push this? Like what the hell is going on,
So when I guess I want to be clear, like when I did all these runs, I never thought of myself as just like doing that forever. I actually was pretty sure that Capcom was gonna nerf what I was doing. Right. So I was actually very reluctant to invest a lot of time into it, thinking that Capcom was gonna nerf it. So I actually quickly after my Nerg run, I started doing other weapons. I think I did some Charge Blade. I invented that Nerg pull on the cave some of the setups for Nerg I invented, like for my Gunlance run.
Yep.
So I was always very much out looking for the next big thing.
Right. So it wasn't just aerial. It was like, what other avenues can you go to sort of push something forward?
Right. So Aerial Greatsword, all it did was it opened up my eyes that there's more to the game than what people see, and that we can. There's a lot of tricks left to be undiscovered, and that was like my mission really. My channel's mission actually has been from the very start to go find all these like exploits that can be used in speedrunning, and I still do it to this day. That's the reason I love this game. It gives me the freedom to do that. The game is complex enough where there's a lot of like hidden gems, and you have to only certain people like are looking for them. So it's kind of a shame that a lot of people quit the game because it doesn't play how they wanted it to, but they're just not seeing what I see, I guess.
Or people who just sort of stay in their own little lane and just are not interested in any sort of exploratory development like that. They just want to post.
Yeah, and there is a lot of. Oh, sorry, you cut out there a little bit, actually.
Oh yeah, there's just these people who just want to stay in their lanes and not do any sort of exploratory development, and they just want to, get good with their weapon, and that's it. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game is so bad to these like kind of players. Like, that's why a lot of the players really good TA players or players who don't like the gimmicks of the game, they've kind of just left the game like entirely, and I don't blame them because this game is not built that way. It's not built like how any of us imagined from the very beginning. None of us really imagined like what the direction this game was going. Like the aerial greatsword, like exploit or whatever. Like that was just one of the many aspects of the game that they hated. It was just like there's so many things. There's so many things.
So I want to get into sort of meta development and pushing the meta forward. Now, I just first want to define to me what meta is, right? And I think there's a couple different definitions of what meta is, right? There's the acronym, the most effective tactic available. And then, of course, there's the meta, which is the sort of overarching, the meta of Hunting Horn is to use this weapon. I think that's how a lot of people use meta as well, right?
Right. It also depends on the category. So if you're playing under TA rules, the meta's different than if you're playing under a non-TA environment. Depends on the monster, what's the most effective tactic. It's just so many variables that people don't realize. Like there's a lot of variables in every run. Actually, and sometimes too, you could be fighting the same monster, but because it's in a different quest and maybe the monster's in a different spot, your most effective set actually changes.
Right.
Because of the environment, and or your most effective set changes because of the current weapon limitation that you have, or because of your there's so many variables, man. Or the way you play particularly.
For me, first let's just say, if anyone's watching this who isn't a speedrunner, there's two sets of rules that we follow, right? So there's TA rules, which is very strict and rigid. You're not allowed to use equipment. It's pretty much just you and your weapon versus the monster. And then there's non-TA, which is more similar to like any percent in speedrunning, where you can use whatever you want, right?
Yep.
But for me, as far as like the most beautiful example of how the meta maybe wasn't developed, but how the meta changed, or how something changed the meta of how a monster was fought, is the Nergigante flash pull into the room.
Yep. That changed on TAs.
I want to know a little bit more about how that came to be. Just for an example, when this flash pull came out and you pulled Nergigante into the room, it was quickly adapted by multiple different weapons, right? So you had everyone from sword and shield to hunting horn to heavy bowgun. Everyone was using this tactic that was developed by what'd you use it with? A great sword? With a gun lance.
Yeah. With
the gun lance. Yeah. Right? So everyone sort of grabbed this technique from a gun lance speedrun and applied it to their own personal speedruns. And furthermore, the tactic is still used to this day. People are still doing it. So that is the perfect definition of changing the meta of a monster for non-TA Nergigante. So how did you come to that sort of idea of flash pulling to the room?
So ever since I learned about flash pulling, I actually learned about flash pulling from watching a Kanta Perme video on he did a speed run on Valhazak. And that's where the flash pull actually first came to be, I think. I don't think he invented it, but he probably saw somebody else do it on Valhazak. And in my mind, I was like, why don't you do this on other monsters? Why don't we just pull monsters to wherever we want?
Right.
And I wanted to do a Gunland speedrun on Nerg, and I was just thinking of how can I get Nerg to not move me around? Because Nerg, he kind of when he kind of attacks you, you know how he slowly gets his body over you.
Right.
And I wanted him not to do that. So I was like, hey, what if I just corner myself into a wall, and then Nerg can't go over me.
He physically can't go over you.
Right. So I thought of the idea. I was like, hey, what if I just pull him to that little cave at the beginning? And and then by then, it was actually just for that. I didn't really invent that trick because of out of necessity of I want to pull him faster. It was because I wanted to corner myself in a spot, and I just happened to pick that spot.
Right. So, you sort of had this idea and you needed something to facilitate that idea, and that's sort of how that happened, right?
Right. And then quickly every weapon realized that, hey, we like to be cornered in the corner with Nergigante. And then so every other weapon started doing the same thing.
There's actually a lot of these sort of meta developments that sort of sprung out through yours and my Monster Hunter speedrunning career. And the one that we share, of course, is the Pink Rathy and Dung Pod pull.
Yeah.
And that's
there's so many others. There's so many others that I can't put on top of my recall on top of my head. Some of them are just so interesting. One of them that I know of is the Valhazak, AT Valhazak. When everyone realized that Valhazak, when he gets attacked from the back, he does that little back jump. I quickly saw people speedrunners. I think it was a glutton runner. I forgot what his tag was.
Abusing that infinite back hop.
he didn't abuse the infinite, but he used like that trick to like set up a bunch of stuff around Val to like get the lock going. Like it was cool how like they implemented this trick into their own run to make it happen, like to put him in the right spot. It was just like how, and every runner uses the trick differently and kind of it grows it in their own way. So it's just very interesting to watch that.
Yeah, and I think sort of like as far as meta development is concerned, there's all these beautiful shining examples of how, you know, one small idea can sort of blossom into sort of a game changer, just over the course of like getting passed down through the hands of many different people, and people, you know, molding something specific to fit their own niche, and then someone sees that and takes it even further.
Yeah, it's still happening to this day. It happens constantly, and people are evolving setups. So I actually think that that's the funnest part about Monster Hunter World, is the setups, like optimizing setups. Like people don't realize how important these are, because a lot of monsters, they're locked 0 to death. You know, you can kill a lot of the monsters from start to finish without them moving. But how do you start that lock optimally? Or how do I maximize the damage out of the lock? It's still in the air of what the fastest way of
and
getting all that setup is. Yeah.
This sort of segues into the next topic, right? Developing a speedrun. How do we develop an actual speedrun? Like, what's the thought process going through it all? Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about this. So, I mean, I don't know if you just want to just generally pick one and kind of talk us through how you sort of developed. You know, actually, I really want to know about the Arc-Tempered Kushala.
Oh.
The Arc-Tempered Kushala, if you guys don't know, this one is like, oh my god, it's one of my favorite speedruns you've ever done. And again, I was a fanboy before we were homies. So like,
are you talking about the most recent one, or like the middle, like the one when it first came out?
So you had I'm pretty sure it was AGS. No.
Oh no, you're talking about normal Kushala.
Oh, it is. So yeah. So you there's a flash pull incorporated. There's bomb placements. There's evasion mantle procs. There's all these sort of different things going into it. And so like, how'd you get to that point on that run?
Yeah, so actually, I really like that run, because it's funny because when I do a speed run, when I don't know about you, Griffted, but I normally think about the run when I'm at work, or I think about like where I'm at the gym. I'm actually thinking about how am I gonna make this run happen, and I have I pull up a bunch of different scenarios in my head about how I'm gonna make this happen, and I just try things. And when I get home, I'm just like, hey, what if I do this? And actually, a lot of times, nothing that I was thinking of works. And what ends up happening is you discover something else while you're experimenting. And
okay, so this is the gun lance. This is gun lance. I misspoke. Regular Kushala, gun lance. That's what we're talking about, everybody. Sorry.
Regular are you talking about aerial gun lance?
Yep. So you had the 2 minute.
Well, the aerial gun lance run was developed pretty much a carbon copy of the aerial greatsword one. So
where's the aerial greatsword one?
It was very early on, man. It used to be it was my channel's main video for, actually I think I changed it recently, like a week ago.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. Jesus. Regular Kushala aerial greatsword, 1 minute 27. This one was posted April 26th.
Yes, April. Like think about how long ago that was.
Yeah, dude. Fuck. Yeah, sorry. It's like really late. Okay. So this is the run. This is one of my absolute favorite setups. And then the reason why I was getting confused is because you use something pretty similar to your aerial gun lance.
Yes.
Kushala
very exact same ideas.
Okay. All right. Got it.
I reuse ideas constantly. Yeah.
So you sort of formulate all these plans, and I'm the same way. Like, I'll be at work or out grocery shopping, and I'll think, oh man, this will be really sick to do. And then in practice, of course, everything goes like haywire.
Yes, correct. Like you start thinking of like, what if like I mount him here and I stagger lock him here. Like what if like I'm able to, like I've tried so many things, man. I've tried I've tried all the mantles. Like I've tried the glider mantle, the impact mantle. You know, you try all these different things, and man, the amount of experimentation that goes on is absurd actually. And that's actually how I feel that's how you become a better player. You kind of understand how all these items and the monster behaves out of all these things. And obviously none of these things are available in TA runs, so they kind of are missing like a big chunk of the game. So the TA world is so different from the non-TA because the setup, like the non-TA run is all about the setup. It's 100% setup. So when the TA runner goes to a non-TA run, is like, what is this? It's not even about you fighting the monster. It's about you being able to like orchestrate like these items together and make the monster like be in the right spot. Is actually pretty neat to watch some of the runs. And it's not just me. There's other people who have done very neat like orchestrations of like, I think it was Jin who was the first to like pull monsters together and cluster them together. Like out of the flash pulls, like he would drag monsters from two different areas into an area like between them. Like it was just funny watching him like flash, you know, both sides.
If you guys don't know who we're talking about,
together.
That's Jin Fury. Okay, you guys got to subscribe to him on YouTube. He's insane. Okay, he's insane.
Yeah, and just lots of players doing all these funny tricks that like you end up stealing because they're so like, oh, it's like, wait, I can use that.
You know, it's funny because when I watch, you know, a speed run by TSC, it doesn't look like Monster Hunter, right? And it just further emphasizes the point you made earlier. Like, you're a speed runner, right? First, and the way you are killing a monster does not resemble how I kill a monster or how the general population kills a monster. It is like, it is orchestrated and just painfully accurate.
It is just very planned out. Everything's very planned out and obviously a lot of times you lose control and you keep going because you have no other choice and you get the run anyways. So that's happened countless times. But that Kushala run that I did with Aerial Greatsword, 100% orchestrated. I knew exactly to the last hit when he was gonna die. Just planned everything to the exact.
This is 1 minute and 27 seconds of your life, right? And of anyone's life who watches the video. It's 1 minute and 27 seconds.
You want to ask how long it took to get to that?
You already know what I'm going to ask. It's 1 minute and 27 seconds to watch that and enjoy that video, but how long did it take you to get that time?
About 25 hours.
Whew.
Yeah.
25 hours.
And what's really interesting is the 25 hours isn't you trying to get the knowing what to do. It's actually 23 hours of you trying to figure out how to finish this lock.
Right.
And then once you know what to do at the end, you've practiced everything else so much that you can get to that point real quick, and boom, 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 you're done. You get the last part. Like, getting the last 10% is hard because how else can you practice the last 10% without getting there every time?
Right.
So I've gotten to that end, you know, so many times, but I wasn't able to finish it out because I just didn't know what to do. You try all these things and they don't work, and you're like, and then you know you get frustrated, and then when it actually clicks, it's done because it's a scripted run.
And so this is something that's interesting as far as speedrunning is concerned. It's an incredibly time-consuming hobby, right? You know, one speedrun may take 2 minutes of someone's time to watch it, but in reality, that speedrunner literally went through blood, sweat, tears, and sanity trying to get that run, resetting hundreds, thousands of times with, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 hours just poured into this one run for people to watch or don't watch. You know, there's so many speedrunners who just don't get any views, and they just dump so much effort into the run. And it's such a vanity-free sort of hobby, isn't it? It's sort of like, I mean, it's not like, it's for the general population of speedrunners, of course. I'm not talking about, you know, you, Fumetto, like the guys who get thousands of views when they post. But, you know, for us normies, when we put time and things into it, you know, we get 500 views, 600 views.
Right.
You know, and it's I think that's important about the speedrunner mentality, is that This is not something that's going to make you rich. It's not something that's going to make you famous. This is something that you should do because you're passionate about it. Because it's going to take a lot of effort and you're going to get very little reward out of it. And I think people like you, TSC, are so fortunate because you're some of the few who have that big success, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think from the very beginning, what I learned was if you wow yourself, you will wow others. So whenever I go into a run, whenever I go into doing a speed run, I just think like for example, when I did my recent Luna run, I kept saying like, wow, I can't believe you can feline heroics Lunastra. I cannot believe that. So when you go into a run, you have to almost be in disbelief that this is even possible. And if you're in disbelief your run's impossible, other people will be in disbelief when it happens. So
that's actually like the dopest thing ever. Yeah, that's amazing.
I always like aiming for like that's why I actually don't like very much about going back to runs I've already done, because the wow factor is gone. Everyone knows it's possible. You're just doing it for the just to prove that you have a better time. But in reality, it's like, okay, you're treading old territory. Like let's find the new thing, and that's kind of what I'm always chasing the new thing, and that's why I don't really care much about going back through my old runs and improving the time, because it's like, well, I have better gear now and the run will be the same. It's
right.
Like, I don't even want to do it.
There is something to be said, like, okay, do I go back and tackle my old runs with the power creep gear that we got, or do I just leave it as is and let it get dunked? So that I think that is a definite battle. So like, I don't know about you, but many questions directed towards me as far as being a speedrunner is concerned is improvement. How do I get better at the game? What is your advice?
So I think the problem is that speedrunning and playing casually are two entirely different things. And a lot of times people just see these speedruns and are like, oh, exploit, I'm going to be able to use this in a regular run. And the truth is, you probably are not. These runs are highly scripted, highly controlled. They only, for example, like aerial gun lance, it really isn't better than normal gun lance unless the monster is literally immobile and you're able to hit them in the face constantly. Only then does the aerial actually out DPS just playing the gun lance normally. So right. Same thing goes for hammer. These runs just can't happen outside of these controlled environments. So
I think there is some sort of unrealistic expectation, especially when like a young up and comer who wants to get into speedrunning maybe watches one of your videos and is like, oh, that's so cool, I want to apply that it just in my casual sort of gameplay, and that's just not how it's going to work.
Yeah, even back then when I was like doing aerial greatswording, whenever I played with people online, I would just play greatsword normally. I wouldn't even, because like, why you can't really, like, unless the situation arises to do the aerial greatsword, you don't really have the chance to, like, so just there's no way, like, you're not really gonna see much of me playing greatsword normally, because when you're playing normally, you don't have the chance to, and it's just not possible. So
right. I think you're right, but for me, if someone wants to get better at the game, there's two different routes. There's getting better at the game, and there's getting better at speedrunning the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's two different, routes. And I think, for me, it's sort of interesting because we sort of had opposite upstarts to the Monster Hunter World speedrunning. I very much started off as a casual. I mean, unabashedly so. I was absolutely a casual. And
we all start as casuals, though.
Yeah,
the difference is I started as a casual, but I started as a casual in XX, whereas right when World hit was when I was able to get serious, and you just happened to get in like slightly later, so you had no choice.
I really, when I started posting runs, I was not, I was nowhere near the level that I am now, if I can just, be vain for a second. And it's almost as if every single speedrun that I posted, I just got incrementally better and better and better. Yeah. And then only recently, within the past, 5 months, I think, is when I've really come into my own as a, quote unquote speed runner. But up until that point, you know, posting for almost a year now, it's, you know, the first half of my catalog is not, you know, not inherently good speedruns. Like if I watch early TSC speedruns, it's like, I don't know, you just saw the game differently than I did at first. And that's true. And I want to make this point because anyone who's interested in starting to speedrun, like, TSC is a freak of nature. You got to realize that, okay? This guy is a freak of nature. He's like Rainy, okay? Normies like me, like Griffted, you're going to have to grind. You're going to have to grind it out. And the best way, if you want to get...
You're giving me...
No, dude, no. But the best way to grind it out as a normie, okay? If you're not some sort of secret savant who is, you know, crushing world records off camera, you're just a normie like me. You have to post your bad runs to your YouTube channel and you have to watch them, okay? And you have to leave them up. Never delete your bad runs. And you just keep doing that. You just keep doing runs, recording, posting, and eventually someone's going to watch, and eventually you're going to be at a level that is where you're a top player. Seriously. And I'm the perfect testament to that.
Yeah, actually, I think right now is the time for people to start learning how this. If you want to actually
it's a
get
great
serious
time.
About
it's a
Monster
great
Hunter
time
World.
to start learning Monster Hunter World as far as speedrunning. It's not dead.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff to do, and then, you know, just even disregarding the upcoming Iceborne release, there is still so much to do in base Monster Hunter World.
There is. The thing is, though, a lot of people. It is very repetitive, but. I did say it because of Iceborne, actually. Like the fact that Iceborne is coming out later this year actually means that right now, if you start now, you have a good time to catch up to what everyone else has been doing, because the truth is the meta or the way you play the game is not going to change that much. I mean, the idea of how to be better is not going to change once Iceborne comes out, because I'm going to keep doing my same exploration when the game Iceborne comes out. There's going to be new things found. New weapons are, you know, well, not new weapons, but new tricks will be found with the same weapons.
Right.
You know, we don't really know what's going to happen. Like, what happens if, you know, they release a new pod that is really good for the sword and shield? You know, like, we don't know. Like, what if they release a new mantle that's really good for the hunting horn? Like, we don't know. Like, that might have some trick. Like there's just endless possibilities of what might happen.
Yes, absolutely.
What if they change a move of one weapon and, you know, it changes like everything about certain matchups? Like, you have to just be
and the
ready
more people we have exploring these sort of avenues and different weapons and different mechanics, the better, because the more people we have, the faster something is developed, right?
Yeah, I actually that was actually one of my main complaints about this community, was that from the time that I started doing aerial greatsword, it took about 8 months before anybody else actually took it seriously. 8 months.
Yeah.
Like, I did my first aerial greatsword run like in February, and it wasn't until like November or December that people like Cybele or Delbuster or Jin Furai or Predator started actually posting aerial greatsword runs. Like, think about that. From February to December, it was literally just me.
There was 100% a reluctance in the community, and even still to this day, there is that reluctance to accept aerial greatsword or aerial anything.
But think about the moment that other people joined, like Ricky.
Yeah.
The aerial greatsword meta advanced. Like, it just took another person's viewpoint to like change it completely, and now it's like where we are today.
And if you guys don't know who Ricky is, he's this, he is some sort of secret wizard who just, I mean, he's literally Goodwill Hunting of Monster Hunter World. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so basically Ricky just he's a guy from our Discord. He basically was the one who developed what we call the Ricky Bull Ride, which is staggering a monster out of a mount. And the reason I did not think this was possible was because AT-Val Hazak doesn't seem to behave in this format. So when I actually tried this before, it didn't work. And there's actually some nuances to how it works and how to make it work. And I never actually thought it was possible until he was like, hey, this actually does work.
Yeah.
Just you have to time it differently and you have to do this and that. And ever since then is when y'all saw my latest Art Kushala run, that is what the Ricky bull ride is. It is basically you count hits on aerial greatsword, and then you remount, and then you restagger out of the air, and that's what it is. It's just an infinite lock, and it works on Teostra. I don't think it works well on Valhazak, but it works on Tio, on Kush. It works on Lunastra. It's insane. It's insanely good.
Yeah, and I think that just further exaggerates the point of, the more people you have, the more easily things are discovered, because you never know who's playing in secret, off camera. You never know who's grinding. So the more people we have posting, the better. Yep.
All right. So, what next? What else we got? I guess.
Yeah, you want to get into the Q&A?
Okay, sure. Actually, let me think about what else has happened recently in the game. I think it's hard for me to talk about other weapons because there's been so many good players.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way.
Yeah, the meta's advanced so drastically from people like Zebra with the Insect Glaive, Hybris with the Hammer, man. I've watched all those guys. Who else was there? Obviously, there's the non-TA runners that are all my close friends. Jin Furai, of course, and Griffted, and Predator is a good friend. He runs a lot of TAs. We have a whole group of people running all kinds of runs, and there's just so many amazing players. And one of them's SSH as well with the bow. Man, there's just an array of good players that I can't even name them all right now because it's crazy, man. They've just changed so much about the game, and they've all added their own sprinkle of new technology.
Absolutely.
That we've all just slowly been stealing, and it's just there's so much information, and it's kind of just scattered across in the wind, and only a few of us kind of have a bigger picture of what all these tricks entail.
Right, and I really think you have to be a part of the speedrunners community to start really understanding the changes that people have made and the influence that people have. And if there was a way to just get a summoning salt mega video that's just 9 hours long, that just is the complete history of Monster Hunter World speedrunning, that would be the sickest thing ever.
Yeah, a lot of people just see the game speedrunning as lame, but in reality, I think the beauty of the game is discovering what we're able to do with the tools that we have available. So I think a lot of people just don't see the game that way. They want to, it's a Monster Hunter game. They want it to be me and a monster, battling it out, in a test of, might. But in reality, that is not what this game is. This game is it's like a puzzle of you trying to figure out how to completely manipulate this monster like a puppet. You're a puppet master.
Really? Because when I speedrun, it's like a game of how do I not die?
No, the amount of control greatsword or heavy bowgun and bow have on monsters is ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
You are the master and they are your slave.
Yeah,
it is ridiculous. Okay, so I guess let's go to the questions Q&A.
Let's do a little quick Q&A here.
Okay, so let's see what I got here. So actually, one of the questions I was going to ask you, a lot of them have been answered, unfortunately, but how has the hunting horn meta changed since when you started? How have you seen it progress? I guess you can also talk about the weapon, how has it advanced from start to finish? What the move set, just in general, the players, just how has that gone?
So I mean, Hunting Horn started off pretty slow as far as Monster Hunter World is concerned. There was not a lot of development made early on. We sort of realized very quickly that all the motion values got nerfed coming in from Generations. Pretty much every move the Hunting Horn had took a 10 flat motion value nerf. Okay, so that's everything. That's your back slam. That's your neutral right swing. Neutral right swing actually also had an animation nerf where the length of the neutral right swing, how long it actually takes to come out, was increased coming from Generations and For You. So the
I
Hunting
didn't know
Horn
all
was
that.
actually in a very bad spot on release. But
It was already in a bad spot in the old game.
but we knew early on that Super Pound was going to be meta. We knew that with the advent of recitals being able to be canceled now, that forward recital following a forward slam and a Super Pound was going to be meta. We knew that off the bat, and that we knew that recitals and encore focused gameplay was going to be the cornerstone of what Monster Hunter World speedrunning is, and that remained true pretty much up until where we are now. It's very much the same. The only thing that's changed is development of skills and optimization on matchups.
And the armors and the weapons, and yeah, it's funny how all the weapons, including Hunting Horn, went through this phase of how it started with Bone, then it went to Joe, and then when Luna came out, like Joe suffered from sharpness problems, and then every weapon when Draken came out went back to Bone,
right?
Like,
exactly,
and went back to the Joe. Like, it's just funny how we went through this like circle of like
the big thing though with that
weapons.
with that nerf I was speaking on earlier was that it was so bad that Capcom realized how bad it actually was, so they went out of their way to do a Hunting Horn buff where they buffed the self-improvement song, which never before in any Monster Hunter game had ever given a damage buff. It only gave increased movement speed, and when you encored, it gave Mind's Eye, which is a skill from the old games where you didn't bounce off of monsters. But with this update, they buffed it, so it gave a 15% damage increase when you encored self-improvement. So that almost brought it almost made up for the motion value nerf, but not quite. It did not quite.
It's funny that idea of the self-improvement as the attack buff. I think actually that should be the Hunting Horn's just general attack buff, because for the Hunting Horn to have diversity, every Hunting Horn should have attack up. So
I think
they should completely move it to that self-improvement too, where like every Hunting Horn will have that. Like, I don't know.
I think that's a pretty common thought process for a lot of people. For me, I kind of don't feel that way. I think the Hunting Horn actually for a very long time had the most diverse weaponry. We had 5 competitive Hunting Horns that were all interchangeable. And when you
Draken though.
Yeah, of course, right? With Draken, everything changed. And when you compare that to Great Sword or Hammer, where you only have one choice pre-Draken, it's like, okay. But to fix the Hunting Horn, I tell everyone, I think that flat 10 nerf needs to be restored, and we need to maintain the self-improvement buff as well. That would alleviate a lot of issues. That would make stagger locking a lot easier than what it is now. It would sort of put the band-aid on the the arterial bleed, so to speak. But Hunting Horn will never be a top tier weapon, and anyone who's looking to get into the Hunting Horn should just realize that right off the bat. There's just you're gonna be struggling. It's just, that's how it is.
I think another way for them to improve on the Hunting Horn was what was the thing about the shockwaves not being well, the
shockwaves don't crit, so they don't scale with your affinity.
There we go. Right, that's horrible.
It's horrible. I don't know, dude. Don't ask me, horrible, man.
Well, so that
nobody asked my opinion,
So I guess what that means is that you're gonna end up with the best horns being the ones with the most raw, right?
Yep, that's how it is. Raw reigns supreme right now, and it has for a while. So yeah. All right.
Well, that's.
So
I guess you can ask the next one, and I'll ask the next one again.
Okay, cool. So my question to you, TSC, is what is the speed run that you're most proud of?
Oh, I was gonna ask you the same one.
I gotta know it, dude. As a fan, I have to know. That's
actually a really, really good question, because let me see. I'm actually gonna pump through my channel because I can't think of one on top of my head.
Okay.
There's a few that when I see it, I'll just know like, okay, that was like my. I really like the Kushala one that I did. with the one that you mentioned earlier, but like that's just not the optimal way of doing it anymore. So it kind of dropped off my list as my favorite secretly. Because actually that's not the most optimal way of doing Kushala anymore with the new Ricky dunk lock.
Right.
Actually, I would say me discovering the heroics proc on Kushala, on Arc Kushala was actually my second, like my most proud moment aside from like the whole aerial grace war shenanigans.
And that's the one where you flash pull, you climb up, and you let Kushala run into you.
Right. So it's funny because whenever you tell people these things, they're like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, that's obvious. You just let the monster run into you." But it's funny because it didn't exist. I don't think anyone realizes that we already had 2 arced monsters before then, and no one had ever thought about pulling a monster to hurt you like that.
Right.
And,
it's obvious. It's obvious when you watch it, and you're like, "Oh, dude, that's so obvious." But like during the moment,
it's obvious when you see it, but no one else had ever done it.
Right.
So and it was all an accident how it happened. I was actually like doing a setup, and I pulled him, and he accidentally like hit me. I wasn't trying to be in his way, and it like hurt like balls, and I was like, what was that? Like, why did that hurt so much? And then and at that moment I was like, wait a second, like heroics, like that, I literally would proc heroics immediately if that hit me, and it just clicked right there. And ever since then, actually I remember SSH came into my channel. That's actually the run that SSH came into my channel, and he was like, that is the most genius strat I've ever seen. And a day later, Tatsufi stole that strat. SSH stole that strat to beat me. And then just like 3-4 runners, literally a longsword player, I forgot what I don't know what his tag is, Japanese, took that strat too and did this fastest heroic strat, you know, like on longsword, like all within 2 days. And I was just like, wow, like like what just happened?
Oh man, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I actually used that same strat for my Arc Tempered Kushala, except I was using the proc Fortify.
Right, to kill yourself instead. Yeah. It's funny because I think I was actually in direct contact with you when we were both doing this run. I remember Inevitable Truth was also doing this run. Yeah. And we were all like talking about like hurt, you know, like y'all were talking about killing yourselves, and then I was like, what the heck? I was once I accidentally hit myself, I was like, wait a second, like, and I actually it's funny because I sent the whole setup to Prey secretly, and I told him not to show anybody. Yeah. And I told him like to because we wanted to beat Olay. And I told him like it's up to us to beat Olay, cause well the thing is though is like I didn't want Olay to win, and I felt like I was really good at setups, but I was really bad at the Kushala lock, and I felt like Prey was really good at Kushala lock, but he's really bad at setups.
So you wanted to combine forces.
Yes, I was like, let's both learn each other's weakness. Yeah, and like help, you know, let's help each other out here. Right. And I don't think he ever ended up getting the setup correctly, and I ended up barely. That was actually let me say something funny. That was the only Kushala I've ever killed using that lock.
No kidding.
That normal greatsword lock. I've never even done it on normal Kushala. And I only did it because I wanted to beat Olay real bad. Right. So I've never done any other Kushala ever since then like that. So I'm glad I don't have to. Right. Oh, right, man. So that's it.
So same question for me.
Yes, so actually, I was asking you the same question.
Okay, I think for me it's probably a tie. You know, the thing that really put me on a lot of people's maps was the Nergigante non-TA stuff I did. Yeah, so the first one was particularly influential because I used a flash pull bomb setup strat that was actually pretty simple, but nobody was doing, at least for the hunting horn, and it's something that I used on my Lunastra speed run. It's a flash pull into bombs, Rocksteady's on, and you just play your songs, and then when you're done you swap to Evasion Mantle. Nobody ever did that, so I think that was pretty big for the hunting horn because it's been used you know, most recently. But then breaking the Nergigante world record that was like 5 months long standing. Yeah, the 140. Yeah. That's probably the biggest deal run for me. And then it's tied. That run is tied with like, I really love my Odogaron. I have a TA Odogaron that's sub 2, and then I have a event double Odogaron TA run that's like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. But those two runs are like, I really love those runs because it shows how far I've come as a player. So, like, I actually posted a TA Arena Odogaron like a year ago when I was a normie. And you could literally, like, if you watch that and then you watch my
most... it's funny. I'm actually watching you're now on your channel. You had 6 months ago TA rules. Oh, but this was in the Coral High Grounds. You had a 3-minute Odogaron.
Yeah.
And then later on, you got a 208 and then a 159 right after. So, like, I mean, I think these were in different... This one was on the... Oh, no, this one was on the...
yeah, both of those area, were Odogaron Unleashed.
That's still a huge...
Yeah, but those... I think those two runs really sort of exemplify, like, how far I've come as far as my skill is concerned, because that sub 2... I'm the second person to get sub 2 Odogaron TA with the hunting horn. And that run is really just like, objectively, there's so few mistakes that like when I watch that, I'm like, okay, I am actually good at this game, you know? And the same way for the Rush of Blood speedrun. I feel the same way when I watch that. I'm just like, yeah, okay, cool. I actually am kind of good. Like, I was worried for a second, but yeah, so those two. And I love Odogaron.
I think what's really interesting is that you got your Odogaron right before you got your 140 Nerg. That's actually really interesting. That was some good days, huh?
It was some good days because
right?
I took like a month off. I took like a whole month off of speedrunning.
Yeah.
And I did
because it jumped from 4 to 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah, I did some GU stuff and I worked on a couple videos. So I was away from Monster Hunter for a while, like 1 month, 2 months or something. And when I came back, I was just like, all right, like refreshed, and then I just put out some of the best speedruns that I've done. So that's my answer.
That's all it takes sometimes. That's all it takes sometimes.
Right.
Good break.
So okay, my next question.
Actually, let me say something about your runs. So I actually found Griffted off his optional Lunastra run. I know that's not the fastest anymore, but at the moment it was an insanely fast Lunastra run with the hunting horn. So because people were avoiding to do Lunastra because she was, man, when she first came out, she was an animal.
She was brutal,
and no one knew how to tame the animal.
Right.
And I was actually at the moment I was compiling lists of like all the fastest runners on every monster and all optionals. And Griffted, I think after Lunastra, for the first few weeks, for months, Griffted had the fastest hunting horn time.
And that's actually how we met, because
that's actually how I found him.
Yeah, dude, I was watching your stream because I always put your stream on, or I put your videos on or whatever, and while I speedrun, and it just happened to be you were streaming while I was just messing around, and I ended up snagging that. Good. I snagged that, and I like talked in the chat, and I was like, hey, I think I just got the WR, and you're like, oh really? I'll watch it right now, dude. And then the rest is history.
I was actually very excited about like people actually like, because a lot of times people just complain like, oh, I can't do this TA or whatever, and you just dive right in and actually do it. A lot of people, what they did instead was they posted investigations. I was like, come on, man, I want to see what the optional fastest is.
Right.
And then your next most impressive run that I watched of you, there's two that I like pop in my head. It was your Devil Joe run. I thought that was really cool.
One? Yeah, the tempered one.
I don't remember. It was tempered one. The one in the forest.
Okay, yeah. The regular.
I thought that was like the one that you made a video about, like the speed run progression on it.
Yeah.
Like I thought that run was really cool because I actually didn't know much about hunting horn aside from that one video I did a long time ago before hunting horn was even like buffed, like when it was like even worse.
Right.
And I actually didn't know much about like that whole like canceling of the what is that O attack called again?
The devil one that
you
Devil Joe
the jab
slap?
One that you do. Yeah, that right. And
the hilt stab.
Watching that run, like actually knowing what you're trying to do was just very interesting because I actually knew what to look for. I'm like, oh, he's gonna like. It's kind of different when you know like what you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and watching the run, you like have a different like, oh, this guy's not just spamming crap, you know?
Right.
Like there's method to the madness.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a big part of like, you know, the direction of my video making was concerned. I wanted to explain that to the people who didn't know.
Right, that speedrunning is not just clowning, like,
right,
you know, it is a lot of praying, but a lot of times the praying is not where you think it is. Like, a lot of times certain things that look like luck were controlled, and certain things that look controlled were the luck.
Right.
So that's the funny part about it. So
all right, my next question, I want to talk about the overall, well, I wouldn't say overall, but the negative response to Aerial Greatsword when it was first released, and then the many months following it. How was that? Like, how did you deal with that as far as the negative response was concerned to all the naysayers? Because I mean, we spoke on it earlier. You said you knew you were onto something. So was it frustrating that people didn't see it the same way, or what?
Yeah. So from the very beginning, I always saw the game differently. I always saw it as scripted planning runs and setups. So I always just use Aerial Greatsword as another tool, like to my repertoire of stuff to, you know, on top of flash pods and smoke bombs and all those good stuff that I like to use.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said before, when I first started doing Aerial Greatswording, I didn't actually think that it was gonna stick, because I thought Capcom was gonna nerf it. And
right.
every new update, I was actually like, we've actually talked about this, where everyone in my channel holds their breath that they're gonna nerf Aerial Greatsword, because we you know, we really didn't know. And then I really thought the straw that broke the camel's back was when I did my AT Val and I got that 208 on Arc Tempered Val. I was like, okay, after this they gotta nerf it.
It's over.
It never happened. And then I was like, all right, I went to that Capcom competition. Me and Femeto, I did Aerial Greatswording, and we got the fastest, you know, the time on the first event.
Yeah, don't go too far into that, because spoiler alert, that's my next question.
Okay, and then Ryozo, you know, he saw all the aerial strats in the Capcom competition.
The Ryozo face, dude.
Yeah, and he didn't. Nothing got changed. Like, if anything, like, aerial got stronger with Draken. If y'all don't know, Draken gives you airborne, like, as a default skill. So I was just like, okay, I guess they love me.
That face of Ryozo's face, that was like of sheer disgust, was actually sheer admiration.
But going back to the question, I actually did not get a lot of hate at the beginning. The beginning, it was more of like awe and amazement that this is even possible. And actually, I don't think people realized how broken it was until like the setups got really like clean, like understanding the DPS behind it. Because if you think about it, people saw like, oh, Greatsword did a 133, you know, Nergante, but little did they know that the setup takes 33 seconds to perform, and then on top of that, the Greatsword had one of the worst like end game Greatswords. Like all it had was the Great Jagras Greatsword and the Valhazak one, which is the one I used. Yeah. So it, like, and this was pre-Wyvern Ignition, so people didn't really get a feel of how crazy Aerial Greatsword is until like the Wyvern Ignition came out. When the Wyvern Ignition came out and they buffed like Greatsword's like ground attacks, like that's when like I started seeing a little bit more of the hate. Like I what happens is, as your times go lower, people start, what I like to say, coping with your success by just saying that you're getting carried.
Right. They sort of make up excuses, anything to sort of diminish.
That's their way of like dealing with like your success.
Right.
Is that you're just but in reality, like I never like saw it that way. I just saw it as another tool that I like to speedrun with. So I guess if people like to see it, like it's funny like how people like to see me as the Aerial Greatsword guy, when in fact, like if you look at a lot of my channel, a lot of it is not Aerial Greatsword. Maybe only a third of it is, but I'm only seen as that because that's what yields the fastest results.
Exactly.
You know,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually recently I do think that the hate has actually increased mainly because it's becoming a more mainstream to do aerial greatswording.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was only like a one guy thing, only one person was doing it. It's like, if
only one guy's doing it, we can let it slide. But the second you see more people doing it, oh boy.
Right. It's funny because as I think right around the time that Jin started doing it, and the hate started coming. But it's okay because like it's funny because Jin actually like did a lot of like he brought a lot of his heavy bowgun mentality into the weapon, which was really funny because I thought some of his most interesting runs was the one where he pulled two monsters together and he aerial greatsword them at the same time.
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious.
It was crazy.
Like, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I would never have thought that was possible. And I think he double dunked like
dude.
down in Rathalos.
I
was just like, what?
I love Jin, dude. The
like,
way
what the
he
hell?
sees, like, I think the way you see Monster Hunter is crazy, but the way Jin sees Monster Hunter is like just like. That's awesome,
it's
dude.
different, but it's funny. Like I like how when other people bring their and shout outs to Ricky and Del Buster
Of
and
course.
Cybel. Like, man, the way they all run aerial greatsword as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so different.
Yeah,
Like,
shout
I
outs
learned
to
so
the
much
crew
watching
for
them.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they all bring their own like ideas of how to do it, and it's just like I've learned so much actually in the last few months from them that I've like I'm normally very arrogant, but like, man, they've really progressed the weapon, and that's actually what's causing the hate, is that the people are seeing like this bulk of work that's been developed recently, and they're just hating on it. So
Yeah.
all right, so I guess my last question to you is, oh man, you already answered this too. Damn it, Griffted. I was gonna say, what is the run that blew you most away in speedrunning? I know you already mentioned that Kushala run, but is there any other run, maybe not by me, but maybe by any other runner that just like blew you away?
Yes, easy question.
By any other weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. Zebraquake, Maestro Nox, Arena Duo on what is that called? Law Meets Order or something like that. It's the Basil. It's the Basil.
The hunting
goose.
horn one?
Double hunting horn arena Basil.
I saw that too.
I'm telling you, when I say that's my favorite speed run of all time, I'm not lying, because I love that run. I've told Maestro Nox, when Law Meets War, that's what the quest is called, and they got a 2-13 hunting horn duo. I told Maestro Nox, I told Zebraquake, I think this is my favorite speed run of all time. I'm gonna talk about it in a future video for sure, because it's
very good.
It's incredible, and it's sort of crazy because these two players are pretty much, TA speedrunners, rigid, right? Very rigid in their approach to speedrunning, where it's like, we want to kill monsters quickly using our weapons, right?
Right.
But this particular speed run was like way outside of their wheelhouse. These guys aren't like, they're not looking for crazy setups. They're not looking for how to lock the monster down for extended periods of time. Of course, with some examples aside. But this run was like everything that they're not, and it was completely outside of their realm, and it was just so amazing to watch, because it was like these two guys, obvious top players, there's no disputing that, are doing something that they're not maybe super familiar with. Zebraquake especially, with the hunting horn and using the traps. Oh, dude, I just love that run so much, and I don't think I'm doing it enough justice. If you guys haven't seen it, you have to go watch it. When Law Meets War, that is by far one of the greatest.
Some of those arena duo runs are actually some of the greatest runs in Monster Hunter World, because what it does is you have a team of two people, and it's not TA because you have all this equipment, but in reality you're not broken at all because you're very weak. You have very weak equipment, so it's like you have to use all this equipment, and even with all this equipment you're under geared,
right?
Like you're underpowered, and like it's basically just a long elaborate lock, and it's like a puzzle. Like that's why I like those arena runs too. It's like a puzzle with a teammate, and you have to discuss, like you have to figure out, like, what is the best thing to do here, what should we do here. Like I bet they talked about what songs they should be abusing here and here and here,
right?
Like what moves should we throw out in this scenario if this happens, blah blah blah. and that's the fun about the game. Like we had the same thing on our lesson run, like just discovering and talking and with the teammates. And I wish there was more of that. I hope they have more of that.
I wish I wish there was some sort of stream or VOD where I could just watch and listen to these two players sort of talk about their run and how they develop it and everything. Because man, I would pay money. I would pay money to watch that. Seriously.
Yeah.
But
is very good run. I agree. I like that.
So speaking of arena runs.
Last
question. Speaking of arena runs. If people don't know, you're world famous. You and Fumetto, the second place United States championships for Monster Hunter World.
Second place. Kill me.
So, I mean, it's sort of a broad question, but like, what was that experience like, and how did that all sort of come up?
Let me tell you, that experience was the funnest experience I've had this community. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
I'd travel again to because I live in Texas. I travel again to California. I actually spent about $2,000 on the whole trip.
Yeah, and it was you
more.
and Fumetto,
I was only
right?
there for like I was only there for like 3-4 days, and I spent like $2,000. and let me tell you, it was worth every penny. Like it was amazing.
That's incredible.
So I never had met Fumetto in real life. I never actually talked to him much online. So I was also a fanboy of Fumetto, kind of like how Griffted like pretends to be of mine. No, I'm just kidding. But I was also a fanboy because I knew who he was from the very beginning of Monster Hunter World. Like I've always seen his runs, so I'm like, oh man, I don't think he's gonna, because I don't think Fumetto knew much about what I did. So I told him like, hey, on the first quest, like I have the fastest time on the arena. Like I had developed that quest basically, he was like, okay, whatever, like let's do it. Like he didn't, it didn't seem like he really cared who teamed with him. He was like, let's just go with whoever.
Yeah.
And but slowly as like we played a lot, I thought he was very brutal when we were training. He was very like, there were some moments when he's like, why would you miss that? And I was just like, I felt so like okay, like
but then you realize that's how he is to himself too, and that's just Fumetto.
Yeah, he's a really nice like dude. He's an awesome dude. Like when I actually so when I traveled to California, I had a little hotel with me and my girlfriend, and I called him over because like, hey, let's train the day before. I brought my PS4, I brought my monitor. You bring your stuff. And the first thing he does, like he comes to the hotel, and he comes into the door and he has a bottle of wine, and he's like, let's drink, like, and I was just like, this is my guy. Like, he served me some wine, and like we just played while drinking, and it was actually really fun. Like it was amazing to play with him in real life. We were like talking about what we should do, like the mentality we're going to go into, and like, and we already had been practicing for days before then, like, well, actually not days, weeks. So it was just like a really good experience. And then, we got to travel to that convention. I met some people, like I met Sam from the Discord. I met Shepard, the whole Social Dissonance team. I met all of them. Like, they're all like, you're very different in real life. You're not like a troll.
Dude. And like watching that, like, me, Jin, all your homies who are, rooting for you. Yeah. We watched the streams. We watched the competition. Awesome. Dude, me and my wife and I literally watched the competition, and we were like, TSC! Like, dude, we were like hype as hell watching it, dude. That was a great experience especially for me, but especially for you.
It was incredibly fun. Let me just say
that's
that.
Awesome.
Obviously, we had some technical difficulties, like during the whole finals thing with the controller settings that he had, because basically what happened was when you went to the competition, we thought that you were gonna just load into your PS4 account, but that's actually not what happened. You actually had to play with default settings, or like you have to change your controls, and you have 2 minutes to do it. And then in my head, I'm like, I don't know what I changed in my controls. I've been speedrunning this game for 7 months, and I haven't touched my controls for 7 months. And neither has Fumetto. So, lo and behold, he had a very important setting that ruined basically like everything he was doing.
Oh man.
And we were just upset about that. But in the end, I was just like I he was very upset about it. Fumetto, and like I was like, dude, it could have happened to me. I didn't know what settings I had, so I just got lucky with that.
Oh man,
but
still though, what a great experience, man.
Dude, I told him like, dude, I don't care if we lost. Like that was so fun, and I'd do it again. Like I was just like, you have no idea how like how happy I am that you even teamed with me to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why you feel bad. It's like just to have that honor.
Oh,
was, and all I wanted.
The actual craziest part about this whole thing, just for anyone who doesn't know, Fumetto, he's a ranged weapon user, also low key super good hunting horn player. What? But TSC Fumetto, right? These are guys who are amazing players, but really kind of stick to what they know, right? But in order to compete in this, they had to both learn the switch axe.
Dude,
they learned.
You have no idea. The first few the first few days of it, I was just like, I had no idea like how to play the weapon. People were watching me. They're like, "What are you doing?" Like, I got kind of aggravated because people on the stream were just like, "Why are you doing this?" I think it was inevitable truth kept telling me like, well, I'm doing X and Y and Z thing, and I got really frustrated. I was like, man, like f how you use this weapon, because like I'm used to people. I'm used to like me like telling other people how to play the weapon, not not the other way around. So
you had to learn. Not only did you guys learn a completely foreign weapon, you also like got the world record for
off the actual event.
Yeah,
we had the fastest double switch axe run in the world.
That's insane,
even
dude.
beating the Japanese runners. Yeah.
That to me is like the perfect end cap to the whole sort of
very funny
tournament saga, dude. It's just so sick.
Yeah. So we got like a 5:20 or something, 5:21. I don't remember, but like I remember social distance team, their fastest run was like 5:27 or something, and we got the world record, and we were like, wow, we can't believe that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'd do it again, and I hope Capcom does another tournament for this game, and I hope more people travel just to like, y'all have no idea like how fun it would be, to get together with people that you've been, talking to speedrunning like and talking heavily about the game with, like to actually like get together, all play the game together, just to hang out and like just like see the faces behind the weapons, and it would be a neat experience.
Mr. Riozo, I know you're listening. If you do another tournament, best of 3, please, for everyone, for the love of God.
They did change that format in Japan, so they definitely heard the cries.
They heard the cries. Yeah, best of 3. Yep. Good lord. That's just what amateur hour, Riozo? Is it amateur hour, dude?
And I thought the amazing thing about the whole thing also was our run was a complete fluke because of the whole Fumetto's incident where he kept getting hit, and we still only lost by 13 seconds.
Yeah, so if everything would have gone according to plan, it would have been would have been a banger.
I don't mean to say anything, but I actually played sick in that game. I played sick. No, I really did. I played really well.
Hell yeah, dude.
But I'm used to like playing in tournament formats because I played Smash for like 10, 12 years.
You're used
like,
to the setting, the tournament setting.
Yes, I'm very used to that setting. So I was like very much in my element. If anything, I play better under pressure than under like just in friendlies where I'm just like I'd rather just drink and not try hard.
Yeah, we watched it, and your composure was definitely noticeable. You were just like, okay, I've been here before. This is, TSC.
Yeah, let's go. But it was still an amazing experience, and hope to get to do it again.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, I think that's about it, man.
Yep, I think that wraps it up. Thanks a lot for the podcast, Griffted. We had a long discussion here, but I think it's I think people who like to listen to these like long formats will get a lot out of this, so thanks a lot.
Yeah, man, I had a blast, dude, and let's definitely do it again, man.